Hello there, it's Jay here from Jay's Vintage Junk, and today I thought we'd look at one of my new acquisitions, and that is this lovely thing here. And this is, well, I believe this is a Delta S or a Delta Model S computer. Basically, what it is it's a unauthorized Russian copy or Russian clone of the 48K ZX Spectrum. Now, over in the Iron Curtain, they didn't have computers quite as plethoric as we did. They didn't really have home computers really until, well, the first home computers over there apparently was where literally people had got Spectrums over here, smuggled them across to the other side of the Iron Curtain, and reverse engineered them and built their own Spectrums. Then later on in Russia, and all the former Soviet Union, all Poland, Czechoslovakia, all them countries, they all actually started commercially producing their own Sinclair Spectrum clones. And more so, they actually took the Spectrum really far advanced compared with what we had it in the UK. I mean, all these disk drives, IDE interfaces, SD card adapters nowadays, most of that comes from the former Soviet Union. They are really good with these things. Like I said, they had IDE hard drive interfaces for these in the 90s. So yeah, they took it really far with them. This is as basic as it comes, this one. It is pretty much a straight copy of a 48K ZX Spectrum. It will apparently, I've not tried it yet obviously, but it will apparently run 48K Spectrum software without an issue. Now, I actually got this in the UK. It came from a chap who had bought it for some photography for a book on the Spectrum, I think, that came out a little bit ago. And he literally bought this to photograph as an example of a Soviet copy of the Spectrum, and he had no other use for it, so he stuck it on eBay. I made a reasonable offer on it and he accepted it. Now, all I got was just the computer, no leads, nothing, no guarantee it was in working order. He did say that when he got it, he had bought it as working, but he had never tested it and never tried it. I managed to track down, after a lot of search, all I bought it as was a Russian clone Spectrum. I had to do quite a little bit of research on the web, looking at various pictures, and that's what makes me believe it is a Delta Model S. Because pictures of them I found on the web pretty well tally with this. The only slight difference I've found, and I've just got to be careful as I pick this up because I don't have any screws in it at the moment, is if we have a look on the back here, yeah, have you noticed every output and input on this thing is a 5-pin DIN connector. On the Delta S it does say that the joystick, which is that one there, should be a 7-pin connector, and this has got a 5-pin connector. So I don't know what's going on there, because 5 pins you couldn't logically get an Atari style joystick to work with. But I'll look at that later. I'm not worried about joysticks at the moment. I actually want to get the computer to function. Anyway, after a bit of research, I managed to get the pinouts for it. So I made up I made a cassette lead up, so I can connect it up to my laptop or even a cassette player and try loading some software on it. So that'll work for loading software. I made a video lead up, which is just, I'm hoping this thing can output composite. Looking at the pinouts, we have video ground and then RGB, which is obviously red, green, blue. So I presume it'll do RGB colour. I think it'll hopefully do composite colour, which is what I've tried. But I'm not getting any output off this thing at the moment whatsoever. And I had to make a power connector up. I'm using this power supply, which I made this years ago. It's a 5-volt regulated power supply. I actually knocked that up a long time ago to work my Master Compact, because I never used to use my Master Compact with its 3.5-inch disk drive and built-in power supply. I used to use it with a 5.25-inch disk drive, so I made that for that. It also comes in handy because I can use it to run my Atari 800, because that didn't have its original power supply when I bought it. And it runs my Amstrad CP C464 as well when I want to use it with an LCD monitor rather than the green screen. So all I've done is I made an adapter up like that, which is just a power jack to, it's actually a 3-pin jack that, but it's all the active pins in the what would be a 5-pin jack connected. I've done it that way actually because I wanted a different coloured one. I wanted a black one for power, so it matches in with the power supply and I don't get it mixed up with the other two when I'm connecting it up and accidentally blow the computer up. So yeah, I made that up, and then first thing I did was I checked just to make doubly sure that the pin out there was actually the same as the pin out in the side here, and it was a good job I did, because this has been worked on in the past and someone's rewired the DIN connector on the back for power and they've actually wired it back up the wrong way around. So if I'd have plugged that in without checking, I would have put 5 volts down the ground line and the ground down the 5 volts line, and it would have all ended in tears. So it's a good job I spotted that, and I've wired it up. I will probably swap it all back round again and make this more original, but I've, for the moment, just to see if I can get it working, I've wired it up as per the computer, as supposedly it is meant to be in working order. Unfortunately, I can't get anything on the screen so far. Nothing at all, not even a flicker when I put the power on. So I'm hoping it's, I need to do something else for the video out. I need to look into that more. But up to now, I think I will let you have a look inside it. So we'll lift the case off, and I will say, I mean, it looks really nice. It looks quite slick and quite purposeful, like quite a lot of Russians. I quite like Russian radios as well, and they have a certain purposeful look about them, and so does this. But this has got to be the cheap. I mean, if you've ever bought any of the like fake, super cheap Chinese like fake NES and SNES controllers, you know, that horrible cheap plastic they're made out of. Well, that's about 1,000,000 times better than this. This is the cheapest, thinnest. It's almost like vac form plastic. It is really, really thin and cheap and nasty. But there's not a criticism really. It's just how a lot of Russian stuff was. But yeah, it's a nice case, but build quality, I mean, is not good. Right, so we're in, and the keyboard now, compared with the 48K and even the Plus, the Sinclair Spectrum Plus, this keyboard is a dream compared with them. It actually has quite a nice feel to it. It's a proper nice, you could type on it for quite a while. Yeah, it's a nice keyboard. That's a vast improvement over the actual Sinclair that this is copying. Now let's lift that up so we can have a look inside it proper. Now I will lift that up and I'll just rest it back there so we can see. And yeah, first off, now I don't know where this has happened. This is quite strange. You can see the jaunty angle the board's at. Don't ignore that. That broke off when I took the case off. That I don't think is original. Someone's put a power LED on it. There's a resistor in there and it was soldered very badly on like that, and when I took the case off it broke off, but I know where it's come from. It does work actually when you touch it on and you've got power, so it does light up. Like I say, I think that's an addition, as well as this. It's obviously been reworked on at the time, this rat's nest of wiring, which I'll need to sort all out. But yeah, the actual board itself is just, well, it's just like floating round. It's held by one screw in the corner there. Now I thought, oh, I wonder if no one's put the screw on the other side. But if you actually pull it back, thinking it'd line up, there's nothing for it actually to line up on this side at all. There's a couple of brackets at the front here, so you think, oh, I wonder if someone screwed that in, but it should really be here. But then there's nothing at the back to support it, so yeah, the board just kind of flops around at the moment. I'm not going to leave it like that. I am going to come up with a proper solution and actually see if I can get that board to fit in properly, a bit better than it is at the moment, once I get this thing working. The board itself now, if you've worked on a Sinclair board and you're pretty experienced, you can do it without really lifting any tracks. They're not bad boards to work on. I've worked on this type of board before because like I said, I quite enjoy working on old Russian radio sets, even the early transistorized ones from the 60s and the 70s. And the 70s ones, this is exactly the same type of PCB. In fact, these are exactly the same type of decoupling capacitors as well that are used in the Soviet radios. These boards, you just show them a soldering iron. You don't even have to touch them with it and the tracks just fall off the board. They are terrible for it, and I can see a hell of a lot of bodge wires on here. So I don't know if that's factory work or whenever this was reworked in the past, but yeah, these boards are a nightmare to work on. I know that already before I even touch this board. That these tracks will lift for fun, so I'll have to be really, really careful there. I hope to God this isn't factory work. This is poor rework, because these resistors, I mean, they're on the full length of their legs. They've not been trimmed down or anything. These look a lot better. But all around there, I think I'll need to do some investigation work on. I love the processor. I was led to believe that most of these used the Z80As that were made in Japan, and you'd expect that. This actually seems to have, I think, a Russian copy of a Z80A in it. It's called the 80A CPU, and if I'm decoding this code right, I think it was made in 1991. As actually, if I've looked about on this board, most of these chips seem to be dated 1991. We have two ROMs. So one of the things I'll be doing sooner rather than later, at least as soon as I've got my workshop tidied up a bit more, is I will be pulling them ROMs out and I'll be doing a ROM dump on them and having a look at them. I wonder if there's any emulators out there that they will run on. I'm not sure. I will look into that, but I certainly want to dump them and get a file of them just in case anything happens to them in the future. I'm hopeful if there's anything wrong with the processor. It is a direct copy of the Z80A, the Zilog Z80A, so I should be able to just, if that is dead, just dump a Z80A in there and it should work. RAM wise, it's different in this, as in, as you know with the 48K Spectrum, the lower bank of RAM was that horrible 4114, which uses +5, +12, -5, -12 volts, and is very, very flaky. This doesn't use it. This is solid state all the way through 5 volts. There's nothing else there. I have done a quick fly around. I couldn't find anything else. There's no little converters to up anything up to 12 volts. It's 5 volts input. The RAM chips in this just need 5 volt supply to them. So there's the RAM. It's all socketed in these lovely Soviet chip sockets that look like they'd survive in a tank. Again, the processor is nicely socketed. The RAM, sorry, I'll get back to the RAM. The RAM, if it fails, I should be able to. It is actually, it's Russian RAM, but it's a copy of the oh, what the hell is it called now? 20 something 64. It's the same RAM as used in the upper RAM banks of the 48K Spectrum. Anyway, that would work perfectly well in that situation there. Nice little crystal there. soldered on wires and coming over here somewhere, so I don't know what's going on there. I would have expected that to be soldered right down, but again, I don't know what's happened to this thing in the past. I really need to get a circuit diagram for this. Unfortunately I don't speak Russian, but circuit diagrams are pretty universal. I've worked on foreign circuit diagrams many times in the past, so hopefully I can decipher it. So I think that's all I'm going to do for now. I thought this was just do a quick overview and show you what I've got, and show you what one of my upcoming projects is going to be. So yeah, thanks for watching, and goodbye.